Hello everyone, Ryan here. So I thought I'd review one of my all-time favorite movies, Midnight in Paris. Of course, it stars Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams. And in it, Owen Wilson plays this writer named Gil Pender. And he goes on a trip to Paris with his fiancée and then his in-laws to be. And one night, of course, after midnight, this car pulls up. He gets in, and next thing he knows, he's at this party, and he's talking to different great creative types such as F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway, Cole Porter, and he even meets Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, and a bunch of other noteworthy writers and artists and musicians. And so, eventually he learns that he traveled back in time to 1920s, of course, Paris during the 1920s. And this occurs pretty much every night at midnight. And it's pretty cool. And at the same time, eventually he realizes that he's, pretty much no longer in love with his fiancée, and who is played by Rachel McAdams. And he falls in love with this other girl in 1920 who is named Adriana, who at one point she is Pablo Picasso's mistress. And, he finds out that she is kind of like a quote-unquote art groupie. So he falls in love with her, and he tries to start something up with her, even though he knows that obviously there would be no real way for him to do that. Other than staying in the 20s with her. So the story does take an interesting twist towards the end. I don't want to give too much of it away. Even though this movie has been out for quite some time, I think since, I want to say 2010 or 2011. But as far as movies go, and especially Woody Allen movies, usually I tend to not really care for Woody Allen's movies, as I'm sure I believe a lot of people feel the same way. It's regardless of whatever Woody Allen is guilty of in his personal life. I don't want to go into too much of that, but as far as this movie is concerned, Midnight in Paris, I don't know what it is. I guess for me, it's it touches on so many different things for me personally, as a creative person. For me, being a writer, a musician, artist, is just, I like the way it's shot. The entire, pretty much every scene. For me, almost every scene, pretty much more than 90% of the scenes in this movie, I find really interesting. Not just nice looking, but because it's it adds to the overall mood of how this character Gil Pender is feeling. Torn. Ultimately, he becomes torn between two worlds and two women, and it's just really well made, really well put together. Also well acted. Owen Wilson, I would say, because usually when I think of actors like Owen Wilson, I'm used to seeing him in a lot of comedies and not really being serious for the most part. But in this one, there are some parts where he kind of acts comedic or in a humorous fashion, but it doesn't really come off as him like just being silly for the sake of being silly. It's more, him, his character really struggling to grasp the situation that he's in, trying to understand it, at the same time trying to come to some kind of resolution. And it's just, and Rachel McAdams too, as his fiance, she gives a really good performance too. Ultimately, she comes off as like superficial hypocrites. Yeah, I don't know how else. I mean, and that's me being polite. I mean, if I wanted to, I could use a whole bunch of other words, but I'm sure you could probably understand where I'm coming from. If you've seen this movie, pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. But even if you haven't, I mean, it's like, I'm sure most of us are familiar with those kinds of people who are, very shallow and vain and just very superficial. And so that's Rachel McAdams' character in this movie. Overall, I mean, I gotta give this definitely 9.5 out of 10 as far as a rating goes. I would say 10 out of 10, but that's because, there's one part, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but I felt like they could have changed it up a little bit, kind of like towards the end. The end itself is all right. I mean, the actual ending is all right. And I guess also, too, it's just me, like, I kind of the first time I saw it, I wanted it to end in a different way. So, I mean, just because it's one of those endings that kind of leaves things open to interpretation, or not really too much, but still open to interpretation nonetheless. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Let me know if you've seen this as well, what you thought about it. And I definitely recommend watching it, especially if you're interested in a lot of artists, writers, musicians from the 1920s. If you're interested in all of that, I definitely recommend watching it. You gotta watch it at least once. So, yeah, at least once. So that's it for my review of Midnight in Paris. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.